Hello, everybody. My name is Spoons Rattling, and I am currently inside a box of aggressors. Today, we are painting the Salamanders. Renowned for their love of fire and melta, as well as human life for its own merit, these guys are a personal favorite. Their green armor does play a big part into that. The contrast with the black and the occasional red is immensely striking, and it means their skin is a lot easier to paint too. Let's get into it. To follow this painting guide, you'll need the following paints: Intermediate Green, Orc Skin, Administratum Gray, Gravelord Gray, Leadbelcher, Abaddon Black, and Hardened Leather. The first step is to cover all of the armor with Intermediate Green. Now you could use a different green, but this is simply the green I had. Now get this all over the model, though I'd avoid the shoulder pads. I messed up here. Regardless, it doesn't matter too much as the black will apply fine over it. Next is to use the Speed Paint Orc Flesh. Now, like any speed paint, just cover the whole model with it and then let it to dry for a little while longer than you would with, say, a contrast or a wash. This is to help bring it to more of the sort of jade green color that the Salamanders are more known for. As I said, just go over the entire model, make sure it gets into all the recesses and doesn't pool too much, and it should be fine. However, if you wanted to, I'm sure you could find a green that you wouldn't have to do this step for. This is simply what I had at hand, and I sort of was winging it as there were no instructions for the Salamanders. And you can see, this is what the model looked like so far. I avoided the shoulder pads as I didn't need to make them green. With the green mostly done, we're on to the next majorly important part of this armor, and that is the black for the shoulder pads and any other details you want to make black. I'd also recommend painting his bolt gun black at this point so you don't have to crack the black out again later. As I do with every paint, the first thing I did was thin this down to an easier consistency and applied it in 2 thinner coats instead of 1 thicker coat. I find with black paints they often come quite thick, so it is very important to thin it down. Try not to get any on the trim, though it's not the end of the world if you do. It will just take a bit of time to repair it, as you have to wait for that speed paint to dry again. Remember, let it dry or you may accidentally tear it up if you put any water-based acrylics above it. Now, we're on to the next step. With the black done, it's time to move on to another important color. That's gray. We're going to apply this to the eagle on his power fist, the crux terminatus, the laurel on his other shoulder pad, his aquila, and also his chest eagle. Make sure you do all of this. It will be very important in a later step. It will help tie the model together as well as help you paint this skin tone, which we're about to do now. Using the Gravelord Gray speed paint, I applied 2 coats over his skin and 1 or 2 coats over the rest of the stone. At first, he'll keep the gray complexion, but after the second one, his skin will darken significantly, while keeping the face very well defined with some gray highlights. This is my preferred way to do this, and honestly, it felt really good painting a face that looked as good as this, with as little effort as this actually took. I'd highly recommend anyone who plays Salamanders or a similar army gives it a try. The next step is a simple but important one. I used the Hardened Leather speed paint on his belt, just doing 1 or 2 coats if there was green over the entire thing, and that's about it for that step. We are closing in on the end here. We're breaking out the metallics finally, using Leadbelcher for the mechanical bits of his bolt gun and power fist, as well as the vents on the power pack. You've seen this done probably a million times at this point, so I won't waste too much time on what you paint Leadbelcher. It's really up to personal preference when it comes to Space Marines. You paint as much or really as little as you'd like. Next, I returned to Intermediate Green to do some very light highlighting, mainly on things like his fingers, his shoulder pads, and his knee pads, just to give some extra pop to the model. Luckily, this color was subtle enough that any mistakes were hardly noticeable, and if they were, I could easily repair them using the original Orc Flesh speed paint. Just take your time, go around the model, and pick out the top edges of some bit. It does really help him stand out on the battlefield, aside from his fellow enemies as well as his allies. And he is a sergeant, so I think it's worth spending the extra time to highlight him. And here, you can actually get a very good look at the finished product of his skin, having that very dark black with the gray highlights on his face. Here you can see me highlighting his hand. That's something I quite enjoy doing, as well as highlighting his elbow pads, another thing I quite enjoy doing on Space Marines. Mainly the Loyalist variety, though. From here, we are done. All you have to do is paint the black how you see, and they're done. Here you can see the 360. I have been Spoons Rattling. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And here's a comment for you. What's your favorite successor chapter, and one successor chapter you're excited to see in this series? Next up will be the Imperial Fists, and then we should be getting the Space Wolves after that. Though I did kind of mess up their color scheme, so I have to reshoot that entire video. That's a story for another time, though. I've been Spoons Rattling, I'm still stuck in a box of aggressors, and I'll see you all next time.